Or WhatsApp us and we'll prepare it, ready for your arrival.
Whether you need prescription or over-the-counter medications, blood glucose testing, or advice on vitamins and supplements, we're here early in the morning to late at night. Both of our locations at our Camana Bay and airport stores are open 7 a.m. to 9 p.m., Monday to Saturday.
For more info, visit fosters.ky/pharmacy. Foster's Pharmacy. Better health because we care.
When it comes to cooking for my family, I turn to Kirk Market for all our nutritional needs. Whether whipping up a quick stir fry with lean CAB choice beef or preparing a healthy weekend dinner with fresh local snapper, Kirk Market always has exactly what I need. At Kirk Market, I find premium proteins that keep my family healthy, energetic, and always coming back for seconds. Visit Kirk Market today. Bring home the quality and freshness your family deserves. Kirk Market. Eat well, live well, and experience a world of choice.
Buy and sell almost anything. Shop and buy new and gently pre-owned items. Declutter your home and earn some extra cash by selling unwanted items. ektrade.com, where K-Man goes online to buy and sell.
The views and opinions expressed on Straight Talk with Austin and Ellio do not necessarily reflect or represent the views of Stingray Media, its staff, or contributors. Callers to the program accept full responsibility for the views expressed. The show host and affiliates are not liable for any statements made or any harm claimed. All callers to the program indemnify Straight Talk from all claims. Offensive, defamatory, or unlawful content will not be tolerated. Be a part of the conversation by calling 745-2626. Now, here's Straight Talk with Austin and Ellio on Bobo FM.
Hello, K-Man, and happy Monday. I'm your host, Austin Harris.
And I'm Ellio Solomon, and welcome here to 89.1 with your two favorite hosts.
Indeed, 745-2626 is the number. The phone lines are open here on Straight Talk as we again prepare to engage in a little open mic Monday, taking your thoughts and comments on board with any of the issues of the day that we choose to share with you. You can either engage on our topics, or we can certainly, follow you in your direction on the issues that matter to you. 745-2626 is the number. We are also simulcasting live via YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram. Compliments of Monster Media and, of course, our media partners, Net Clues. Want to say a big shout out to them as well as we kick off another Monday show. Just another final reminder, way to contact Straight Talk. You can reach us on WhatsApp. You can send us a voice note or a text message to 928-2562. If either talking isn't your thing or you don't want to use up your valuable credits, well, in the absence of a 1-800 number, WhatsApp is the best that we can offer you. Ellio, how was your weekend?
It was pretty good. It was very productive, actually, if I must say so myself.
Well, that's always good to have productive weekends.
Oh, absolutely. You got to be able to look back at the day and say, what have I accomplished? And that's what I like with getting outside, getting in the sun, doing things.
Yeah.
Not like that office work. You just do paperwork, and you look back and you, what did I do today?
Yeah, that's right.
It's a little bit more harder to measure sometimes. Sometimes, depending on what the job is in the office. But when you're outside,
yeah,
clear. I don't care whether you're chopping bush, laying blocks, doesn't matter what you do. You can look back and say, that there was bush there this morning.
And it's
no
gone
bush
now.
It's gone now.
It's gone now.
Yeah, there you go.
Well,
so a very tangible environment.
Get you outside with fresh air.
I love being outside.
A little vitamin D. It helps with the, tan you got there.
You see the tan?
Yeah, I do actually. It was a warm weekend.
Off the red nose.
It was a warm weekend. Well, it was an overcast weekend in Georgetown, but it was still hot.
Did get a little overcast out east as well, and then a little bits of drizzle, but not much. Just enough to tease you, to let you know what I could do. I could make it rain now.
Is it true? My aunt, who used to live in East End, God rest her soul, she's gone now, but both my aunt and uncle lived out there. Mm-hmm. And they would always say that, rain is but a fleeting thought when it comes to East End. It may pour in Georgetown, even in West Bay along the 7-mile strip, but boy, East End seems to get nothing but a whisper.
Well, we're kind of creating the rain for town, Austin. Yeah. So normally if it's raining in East End, it's normally probably a little bit of a bad weather,
right.
Although I've seen it where it isn't necessarily, but it's very seldom.
Okay.
At least from what I've seen. Now, granted, I haven't been there as donkey years as others.
Right.
But definitely your family was correct. There's not a lot of rain out there.
Right.
But when it's kind of what we would consider hurricane season, you tend to get a lot more rain.
Sure.
Where there's kind of bad weather around here and there, lots
Right.
of good rain, and then it makes it really nice and green and lovely.
Tell me, I mean, as listeners may know from our past conversations, but certainly to those who are new to the channel and new to the program, Ellio is part-time talk show host, but also part-time farmer.
I am part-time,
He's
so
Farmer
many
John,
things.
or Farmer Ellio.
Yeah, I'm part-time, so many things right now. But I love it because everything I'm doing now, I think I love it.
Yeah. That's important.
Yeah, not like before where, you kind of had to just do this because I need to do this.
Yeah, no, I totally understand, my brother.
Yeah,
Totally
so, I can go to my piece of land. Well, I got a couple of pieces of land, but I can go by piece of land in East End, whether it's day or night. It's just relaxing.
Yeah.
It's kind of my little escape spot. So it's really nice. And I got some goats. Soon I'll have some cows and chickens. My friend Joey beats me on the cows. Maybe I'll take one of his cows.
Maybe. It's always starts.
I mean, I don't want to say it too loud in case he hears me, Wouldn't want the secret out.
The land baron extraordinaire in the Cayman Islands. I think that's fantastic.
No.
What I was asking in terms of the rainfall from a farmer's perspective is in the absence, because obviously water is important for your crops. And, certainly it can be expensive if you're buying it or storing it. But the water table is very high in certain parts of East End. East End has always been
it's supposed to have a good water
traditionally
lens.
the agricultural district for the islands. I mean, again, just using my own family as an example, we used to call it, a little piece of land, or go up in the land was what we used to say, and that land was just basically an area that we'd use for farming.
Right.
So, I mean, is your property sitting on a nice aquifer? Scientific term.
To be honest with you, embarrassingly enough, I have to say that I got a well dug, but I'm not really actually using that well right now.
Oh, really?
I'm still using the water authority.
Okay, I see.
But I mean, it's there. I think they dug about somewhere between 20 and 30 feet, and for sure they were in the water.
Yeah.
And I guess based on the commentary from my neighbors, the water's pretty good.
Yeah. Well, at least
I promise I'll let you know as soon as I start pumping. I just haven't gotten around to hooking it all up yet.
Yeah. Well, again, I mean, on the one hand, you're supporting Cayman's food security by growing, several of the, produce and I presume fruits that we consume on a regular basis.
Mangoes, avocados, lemons.
Yeah. But at the same time, you're using your tax dollars to pay for water, which otherwise
like a double contribution,
which otherwise you would be getting for free from Mother Nature. Well, I think that's all very good.
The pump is hooked up. Just so you know, I would still be given to the economy because the pump is hooked up and it works via electricity.
Yeah.
And so it's just that I haven't actually connected up all the pipes and distributed it yet.
Okay.
But we'll soon get to that. I think it's just a lot of trek, and I can tell you where I'm giving to the economy because I'm driving up there every day, and it costs me at least $800 worth of gas every month.
Yeah. Well, I was going to avoid that because we're still in the good news part of our show, and
well, that's not
whatever you think about what you have to pay for in gas is just not good news.
Yeah.
Though prices are stabilizing a little bit. I mean, we're just paying a little bit over $5 a gallon, $5.34 in some places, which, again, it still is a chunk of change, but you remember when it was nearing $6 and more one stage. So thank God for small mercies, I suppose.
The amazing thing is, Austin, is I can remember walking out to Delvers Esso. Delvers is the one out there by Dixie Graveyard, near to KFC.
Yes.
I used to carry one of those MacArthur U.S. gallon bottles, right? Which of course you were not supposed to fill that up. Apparently, you're not supposed to do that.
Well, apparently today it's considered harmful, but back then,
you got away with everything.
But we also had lead-based paint in our toys, and nobody lost their mind or got lead poisoning.
The kids were eating paint.
Exactly.
But the thing of it is,
certainly
that
Elmer's glue.
You can understand why, because after a while you can feel that bottle kind of starting to melt. But either way, the crux of the story is that I would fill that up, a U.S. gallon, for 25 cents, right?
Yeah.
And bear in mind, I think we're measuring in imperial gallons, which is a little bit bigger, but 25 cents.
25 cents.
And I was sitting and saying, that's when, I don't know how I would know this, but cigarettes cost $1.10. Don't give me that look. I can feel your eyeballs.
Hey, not judging, buddy. Not judging. Not judging. Far be it from me.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I heard it from the neighbors, right?
Yeah, you
so
heard.
anyway, the thing
I
is,
heard.
cigarettes were like $1.10. It was like gasoline for a gallon, 25 cents.
Yes.
And you just look at where the world is today. It's like $11 for a pack of cigarettes. Not that I smoke.
Not that I smoke.
I don't. I swear to God, I don't.
Tell you what, you think that'd be encouragement for those of us who do smoke to think, you know what, hit us in the wallet is just.
Yeah,
That's
it does
the way
make
to
a
do it.
difference. Does make a difference.
It does make a difference.
And then now we're what? Just shy of somewhat at $6 for a gallon of gas. I'm saying,
Yeah.
the world has changed.
The world
What can I
has
say?
changed. Oh, how the mighty have fallen.
Yeah.
Well, sticking with the good news portion, for those of you who have listened for the last 10 episodes, today is episode number 11. Can you imagine? Started on the 10th of February. We're now at 11 episodes. Certainly growing every day, not only in followers on social media, but certainly listeners on the radio. Taking a look at some of our analytics, which hopefully might be something we could share with our listeners, certainly our advertisers in due time. But we are growing, and we're grateful. But certainly we start off for the first half hour from 4:30 to 5. Start off with a little bit of good news. We don't tackle any of the ticklish, the sticky, the uncomfortable issues until at least 5 o'clock. But for the first half hour, whilst you're getting in your car, just getting off work, settling into your car for that long drive, and for those of you who live, east of Tropical Gardens, settling in for that long drive home.
Or west or north of A.L. Thompson's, right?
Yeah, exactly. Though getting to West Bay, whilst there is still traffic,
zip a little quicker.
It is a little quicker. Certainly not that which it was some 10, 15 years ago. But we've seen improvements in that regard. But certainly the trek in and out of the Eastern District is just crazy. Horrible. But anyway, we try to make that drive a little more comfortable with some good news first, and then we'll tackle the sticky bits at 5 o'clock. We were talking about farming, in particular my colleagues, the land baron of Straight Talk farming lands. But Beacon Farms has been doing some wonderful work. We see from the headlines that Beacon Farm creates some 70 acres of new fields for landowners across Grand Cayman. The article that appeared, I believe, in the Caymanian Times says Grand Cayman now has 70 additional acres of farmland after Beacon Farming Services converted rocky land into fertile fields for 5 landowners in Georgetown and East End. A new agricultural land will have a range of purposes from livestock grazing to growing hay. And they've done this for 2 specific landowners. The article refers to 2, so I'll refer to those 2. In the first instance, land owned by A.L. Thompson in East End. He had, 6 acres of rock, and with the benefit of a rock crushing machine and some good old-fashioned elbow grease, they were managed to pulverize rock.
For sure, he owns a lot more than that up there.
Oh, no,
I'm
maybe
sure
he does.
6-acre section.
I'm just identifying the 6 acres that were just recently cleared.
Yeah.
I'm sure there's a lot more to go with it, particularly the purpose of that land is always to start growing grass, and then from that to feed cattle.
Right.
So he's going to create a cattle ranch. I guess
the hay is expensive.
I guess he saw Yellowstone, too. Did you see Yellowstone? That new series, I think it's on Paramount with Kevin Costner.
No.
I'm addicted. It's a fantastic show. But anyway, we digress. But A.L. Thompson apparently engaging in cattle farming. And there's a quote here. He says, Cayman's food security can be improved not only by growing more produce, but also by raising cattle and other animals. Reducing costs is critical for farming to be sustainable, so being able to grow food for the animals on site and use locally produced compost instead of imported fertilizers, as Beacon Farms is doing, has both the economic and environmental benefits, but certainly also benefits to the local farmers who are, as we say in this country, trying a thing. So kudos to A.L. Thompson, kudos to Beacon Farming for these initiatives.
Absolutely.
A similar initiative is being undertaken by the owner of the Equestrian Center in Georgetown, Miss Mary Alberga. She's taking a similar approach by growing her own hay to feed her horses. Apparently, Beacon Farming created a field at the back of the property to plant grass that can be later dried and turned into hay, reducing the reliance on imports and, of course, reducing the island's overall carbon footprint. So I think those are good and positive initiatives. Again, I encourage agriculture. I encourage the growing of what we eat in this country. There was a time, I believe, you and I also took a tour of what they call Winter's Land in East End with the then MP or Legislative Assembly member, depending on, what era it was, who gave us a tour, which I think was just incredible. But it highlighted what is available, but also highlighted what little, like renewable energy, we're invested in terms of what we can do to protect our interests as it relates to food security and against the backdrop of rising costs. Eggs, for example, we see, of course, going up because of H5N1. So I think my mother told me the other day that, she's paying almost $1 an egg. If you buy a case of 12, it's 12 something for, a carton of eggs. So it's soon going to be its own cartel. You see guys at the side of the corner say, hey, you want to buy some eggs? Shh, got it cheap, 50 cents, but only for today. Hiding in the dark corners. But yeah, and seriously, in all seriousness, though, I think this is positive news. I'm glad to see Beacon Farm partnering with local farmers. I'm glad to see local farmers more and more, planting more, developing more. And I, again, include my colleague in that handing out of flowers because it is a good thing. It's necessary. It's not just to feed your family, but potentially you're going to grow more than even you can consume. You've got to defray the costs of, because farming ain't cheap, as they say. It's got to be a labor of love. You're not getting rich off it. Well, maybe.
Yeah.
It depends what you're growing.
It depends on how you're. It depends on what you're.
Depends on what you're growing.
You're damn right.
But there's a referendum coming up, so he's hopeful. He's building for the future. Is what he's doing.
No. I'm not growing that
he's
stuff.
Building for the future.
I am not growing that stuff, Austin.
Well, when it does become legal, because it'll be a legal commodity then.
Yeah, so they say.
So they say.
But what I would like what I would like to say there. I mean, I saw one of my friends. I think it was Clifton. I don't think he minds me calling his name. Chatting a little bit about health this morning.
Yeah.
And from a health perspective, at least some of my views is that a lot of times what we're feeding the animals, like we say, oh, it's too much meat, too much this or whatever. I think a lot of times the problem is what we're feeding the animals.
Sure.
And just to give you a little idea about what farmers have to end up doing versus because of the economic situation is, like, you're going to get at least one bale of hay for around $14.75, $15 if you're a farmer, right? And if you have a license, I should state, if you have a license, you'll get it for $14.75. But yet you could go buy a bag of goat feed, let's say, for $6.
Right.
Well, no, this is like pellets, right?
Okay.
And I don't need to tell you, what's into that. Let's put it this way. If your animal eats too much, he dies.
Wow.
Okay? So,
it's cheaper. Yeah. It's not necessarily great for their diet.
Very rare should food kill you.
Yeah.
But it is important that, you're supposed to be getting all kinds of good stuff in there.
Right.
They're supposed to be giving you kind of good vitamins and all kind of stuff in those pellets. But even then, you have to monitor it. Like, you can't maybe eat more than a pound, for example, per goat, etc.
Okay.
And I would hazard to say that there's some things in there that causes a transfer or something in your animal that probably doesn't make it as healthy. It's personal in my view.
Sure.
Where the animals, to me, were naturally meant to eat grass and bush and hay and those sort of things. So
the nutrients found in Mother Nature oftentimes can't be, obviously,
it can't
matched.
Perfectly replicated. And the thing is that, I mean, you hear the arguments that they add all kinds of antibiotics and all kind of stuff to food. But whatever it is, you can see the benefits of persons being able to say, let's get that grass growing here so that you're getting a lot of that natural stuff and you can hopefully reduce some of that cost on it and be able to make sure that your animals are healthier and reduce the reliance on all the bag feed. And of course, some farmers, swear by it and say it's all good. Right. But all of my goats, for example, I just give them bush that I chop down. And I think I have managed to chop myself in the process. But I use the bush that I chop, and then also I get hay and stuff like that. But see, I love it because I actually feel healthy doing all that stuff, You're not sitting in the office.
You're outside getting your exercise.
Your back end is just getting flat and everything else spreading out, Yeah. You get to walk up and down and bust a sweat, as we say.
Bust a sweat, yeah.
And you feel good.
Yeah, absolutely. And then hold a wonderful fresh at the end of the day.
Well,
sleep like a baby.
It kind of almost all works together, right? Because there's only so much bush that you can chop.
Right.
And you can, this gets us into a big philosophical discussion, but you can see where a person could have money that technically translates to the fact that he could own 6,000 goats.
Right.
So you can have enough money that you own 6,000 goats.
Right.
And there's absolutely no way that a man, one person, or even an entire family could attend to 6,000 goats.
Right, right.
Whereas Mother Nature kind of makes it that once you're kind of doing things yourself, chopping the bush, et cetera, there's a natural spot that you can't grow beyond that.
Yes.
It's like I can't take more than 20-something goats for myself.
Right.
Or now I have another worker. Now I can get some more.
Yeah.
And so I just love the process. It's all very healthy. And I just want Caymanians to think about it, that the things like this farm is actually doing to allow you to be able to eat from the earth here is a good thing.
Yes.
Good for what comes on your plate.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure. Absolutely. Well, to your point, what you feed the animals,
You end up feeding, I'm feeding you too.
feeding you as well. And again, we only need to look at things like, for example, Kobe beef differs from Angus beef, though the food has just one part of it. The Kobe beef gets the spa treatment of cattle. My God, can you imagine being a cow and growing up in a cattle farm for Kobe beef as opposed to a cattle farm for Angus beef? I mean, your lifestyle is entirely different.
One
It's
way
like
you
a
can see
country
it.
club of cattle. I mean, the sad news is you're being fattened for slaughter, but hey, that's how you live.
I don't know what Austin's saying. I don't know what he's saying. But anyway, the bottom
Kobe beef is supposed to be 1,000 times better than Angus beef, and I'm a red meat fan, so I have not been able to afford a Kobe at dinner, but I'm told it's very good.
Yeah, but you start eating the food, nutrient-dense food, you can't really eat too much of it.
Right.
Like, okay, you could get like a big gallon of ice cream, and
Yeah.
most people listening could say, you can just slowly just start eating all that ice cream.
I have no idea what you're talking about,
I
but I
know.
like where you're going.
But yeah,
I like where you're going.
Listen to the rumors. So the thing is that you could technically keep eating all that ice cream.
Yeah.
Because there's arguably no nutrients in there. And I remember sitting many years ago, and you're just sitting there eating the goat. It's like, can I have another plate?
Right.
And then maybe going on to the third. But I can guarantee you, eat that goat that's just eating the bush and everything else, you're not going to eat that much.
Yeah.
It's like the first one is like, kind of had enough of that.
All right.
And I'll hazard to say, probably has something to do with the amount of nutrients it has inside of it.
Sure.
But either way, come out
Okay.
to the farm, Austin. You got to come out there one of these days.
No, listen, it's on my list. Believe me, it's on my list.
All right.
About 5 minutes to go before we have to pause and check in with the BBC
What
News.
other good news you have?
We have 2 bits of good news. I want to try to get through them as quickly as possible.
You're not going to
First of
bring
all,
good news into 5 o'clock.
the Cayman Islands National Museum has launched a new multilingual audio guide which immerses residents and visitors in the voices, sounds, and stories of the Caymanian history, culture, and heritage. According to the museum, they have created a new audio guide, if you visit the museum, with the immersive experience of their galleries and 8 different narrations and different themes that are now being presented in audio form. Well, I call it audio visual,
Right.
both in the Caymanian dialect, English,
Right.
Spanish, French, Italian, German,
Go, Austin.
and the Jamaican patois. There's another one in there
Go ahead and say it, Austin.
that
Tagalog.
Tagalog.
There you go.
Dude, do we only say that because I told Ellio this like 3 or 4 times, and each time I pronounced that word wrong 3 different times.
Tagalog.
Tagalog. So yes, last week we were talking about English being a primary language in this country, yet most people don't.
You know
even
what I
speak
kind of
that.
pictured you doing? Saying
What?
something like Tagalog.
It would have sounded something
Like
horrible
somebody
like
had
that.
a tag in it, Tagalog.
It would have been one of those breaking it down into what is it? The word phonics.
Yeah.
What does it sound
You
like?
mean putting the emphasis on the wrong
The
syllable?
emphasis on the wrong syllable. That's the one. That's the one. Well, again, I think this is good news.
It is good news.
So English is not your first language, and you're in an English-speaking country. We'll skip that for now.
Obviously not a permit.
But the museum obviously is taking that into account of the over 130 nationalities in the country, and trying to meet them at their level to share our culture with the wider residents and citizens that make up this country.
Yeah.
I think it's fantastic, and I would urge anyone, if you have not visited the museum just as a matter of course, do so. It is worth the experience. I will also add to that, because I think it's part of the museum experience. Likewise is the tour at Pedro St. James. Fabulous. And now the Pedro St. James tour has taken a bit of a Disney-esque approach to their tours a while ago. So the museum is kind of catching up in that regard. But either way, the audio-visual component with the history, I think, is terrific.
Hearing about that, I wonder what they're teaching in the schools.
It's a very good question. Obviously, questions that we will have to pose to educators when we have that opportunity. Last bit of good news with, good news is news. You consider it good or bad, I suppose, but it's for the voters. Of course, we're in, it's political season. Nominations day is less than a week away. And I saw today that 4 new candidates have popped up on the scene. Well, 3, with one making a major announcement that I guess he called major, but in Cayman, you can't keep a secret, so we all knew what it was already, but he made the announcement nonetheless. Let's take him first. Obviously, I'm referring to the Honorable Kenneth Bryan, who we had in studios last week, who's Deputy Premier for at least a little while longer. He is, however, acknowledging, confirming that he will be contesting his seat in Georgetown Central, but the big announcement today was, he's joining the PPM.
Right.
As a member with the
Progressives. Yellow goes red or something?
Yeah, he's red, exactly. So, again, it was the island's worst kept secret, but he made the big announcement today, and congratulations to Kenneth Bryan. We have 3 new independents, though. We've got, new. Ulrich Lindsay, again, not so new, but he is an independent contesting a seat again in Georgetown South. He was a prominent figure in the last election, I dare say the last 2 elections, if I'm not mistaken, and he has run in that general area. So he's out as an independent, I believe, in Georgetown South. We have Anthony Ramon, better known as Antti. You might know him, footballer. He will be an independent candidate running against incumbent Kenneth Bryan, also in Georgetown Central. He came out. I saw his banner on social media. And a young man who is involved in youth parliament, a Jaron Reynolds Velasquez, one of those. He's running as an independent for West Bay North. So we have 4 new added to the overall list. I think that's a total of 45 candidates, if my math so far is correct. And we aren't even at nomination day. So that's the good news for this Monday. And when we come back, we'll tackle some of the more sticky, ticklish topics. We have at least 1 voice note on WhatsApp, which we will try to have a listen to and hear when we come back. But do keep it locked. There'll be more Straight Talk on the way following the BBC News. The phone lines are open, 745-2626. Give us a call, but don't change that dial. There'll be more Straight Talk still to come on Bobo FM.
BBC News.
BBC News.
World news from the BBC. Violent clashes.
Thick black smoke.
A tremendous legal victory.
Crucial elections.
Destructive winds.
A search and recovery operation.
A race against time.
An imminent threat.
Flying a drone over a rival team's training session.
Whatever is happening, wherever it's happening, catch up with the latest news bulletins from the BBC.
The home of the BBC World Service. This is Bobo FM.
The BBC's From Our Own Correspondent.
In today's Russia, no one is allowed anywhere near the political stage if they pose a serious challenge to Vladimir Putin.
Stories and reflections from our reporters around the world.
There is a major sense of insecurity here.
More people are coming in from Sudan every day.
From Our Own Correspondent from the BBC.
The home of the BBC World Service. This is Bobo FM.
How can we understand the world better?
The BBC World Service is a window onto the wider world.
A vantage point from which to survey a new horizon.
News, reports, and analysis from around the world.
Stories we think matter.
Different people from different societies.
We get to the heart of global issues.
News, stories, and global perspectives from the BBC World Service.
The home of the BBC World Service. This is Bobo FM. This is Bobo FM, powered by Doctors Hospital. 24/7 urgent care, located in Georgetown at the top of Walker's Road. Introducing the Doctors Hospital Specialty Clinic, conveniently located in the Strand. To book your appointment at Doctors Hospital, call 325-9000. Across Cayman on 89.1 FM, online and on your smart speaker. The home of the BBC World Service. This is Bobo FM.
Hello, I'm Govinda Gill with the BBC News. President Trump has said the cost and burden of securing peace in Ukraine must be borne by the nations of Europe following talks with his French counterpart Emmanuel Macron at the White House. President Macron said Europeans were committed to taking part in such guarantees in Ukraine and more fairly sharing the burden for wider European security. Nomia Iqbal has the details.
Donald Trump and Emmanuel Macron clearly sought to show the close relationship they have developed over the years, lavishing praise on each other and sharing an extended handshake at the end of their press conference. But President Macron came with an agenda. As the first European leader to visit President Trump since his re-election at a delicate diplomatic moment. In his lengthy answers, President Macron kept making the same point. There has to be security guarantees for Ukraine to deter Russia in any peace deal. That point wasn't echoed by Mr. Trump, but pointedly he insisted that Europe had to do the heavy lifting when it came to bringing peace to Ukraine.
There's been a stark demonstration of the growing rift between the United States and its traditional allies at the United Nations as countries voted on competing resolutions to mark the third anniversary of Russia's invasion of Ukraine. James Landau reports.
US diplomats pushed a limited resolution calling simply for a swift end to the conflict in Ukraine. European diplomats tabled a more detailed text, blaming Russia for its full-scale invasion, supporting Ukraine's sovereignty and territorial integrity. UN members overwhelmingly backed the UK-EU resolution, but extraordinarily, the US did not abstain, but actually voted against it, along with the likes of Russia, North Korea, Sudan, Belarus and Hungary. Rarely has the US been so at odds with its supposed European allies.
The Vatican's latest medical bulletin on Pope Francis says there's been a slight improvement in his condition. Here's Sarah Rainsford.
This is the most positive statement on the Pope's health in a couple of days, although his condition is still described as critical. But the Vatican says he is showing some slight improvement. He needs a little less oxygen than before to help him breathe, and some of his laboratory tests look better. We also know Pope Francis is not bedridden, he is eating, and this afternoon we're told he was able to do some light paperwork. He also managed a short call, again, to a Catholic parish in Gaza.
The man set to become Germany's new Chancellor, Friedrich Merz, has called the surge in votes for the far-right AfD the last warning sign for all mainstream political parties. Mr. Merz said he was prepared to hold swift discussions with the Social Democrats to form a coalition government by mid-April. World News from the BBC. The United Nations Secretary-General has voiced alarm at rising violence in the occupied West Bank after Israel announced it was expanding military operations there. Antonio Guterres was speaking at the United Nations Human Rights Council.
In the occupied Palestinian territory, violations of human rights have skyrocketed since the horrific Hamas attacks of October 7 and the intolerable levels of death and destruction in Gaza. And I'm gravely concerned by the rising violence in the occupied West Bank by Israel's settlers and other violations, as well as calls for annexation.
The repatriation of wounded South African soldiers from Eastern Democratic Republic of Congo is underway. A convoy carrying the soldiers has departed Goma, heading to Kigali, Rwanda. From there, they'll be airlifted back to South Africa for medical care. The soldiers were wounded while fighting against M23 rebels around Goma last month. Donald Trump has welcomed Apple's decision to invest $500 billion in the United States over the next 4 years. Mr. Trump took credit, saying Apple had faith in what his administration was doing. He's long pushed US companies to move manufacturing home and has raised tariffs on China where many Apple products are made. Apple says 20,000 new jobs will be created to boost research and manufacturing, including in chip engineering and artificial intelligence. Fellow musicians have been leading tributes to Roberta Flack, one of soul and R&B's music's greatest artists, who's died at the age of 88. She was best known for a string of 1970s hits, including The First Time Ever, I Saw Your Face, and Killing Me Softly with His Song, which won her first ever back-to-back Grammys for Record of the Year. Jennifer Hudson described her as one of the great soul singers of all time. That's the latest world news from the BBC.
and opinions expressed on Straight Talk with Austin and Ellio do not necessarily reflect or represent the views of Stingray Media, its staff, or contributors. Callers to the program accept full responsibility for the views expressed. The show host and affiliates are not liable for any statements made or any harm claimed. All callers to the program indemnify Straight Talk from all claims. Offensive, defamatory, or unlawful content will not be tolerated. Be a part of the conversation by calling 745-2626. Now, here's Straight Talk with Austin and Ellio on Bobo FM.
And welcome back, K-Man, to more Straight Talk. I'm your host, Austin Harris.
And I'm Ellio Solomon, and welcome back to 89.1 FM with your two favorite hosts here. And of course, I think we had one or two more news items, and then we enter into some more serious stuff, or I should say good news items.
Yeah, I think we're...
You finished? You've exhausted all the good news?
We've exhausted the good news. Though we do have one voice note that was shared with us on WhatsApp.
Is it family friendly?
I don't know what it is. I haven't heard it yet. So if there's cursing and foul language, then I'll try to cut it off as quickly as possible.
You jump up as quick as possible.
But I have no idea what is on the other end. But let's have a listen. It's from a member of the listening audience, so it's got to be good.
Ellio and Austin, this is Florence Goring Nosa. I remember on the 7 Mile Beach, when the tourists are walking around there swimming, and in between their swimming, they would walk around with some kind of a metal detector, as if they're looking for treasure or they're looking for some sort of natural resource. It's not a common practice amongst our people locally to, walk around with equipment or metal detectors to see what is underground. But maybe this might be a way that our own people, Caymanians, may find, treasure in different parts of the island. We have a lot of rocky ground. There's something called Caymanite that Christian man, Eugene, I think he created a lot of jewelry from the Caymanite. And Jamaica has bauxite. I'm sure that Cayman has other natural resources that have not yet been discovered. And it may be that we could be sitting on a gold mine and don't even really know. Has it ever entered anybody's mind to explore, what the natural resources may be for the Cayman Islands?
All right. Well, certainly want to thank the listening audience, that member as well, for sharing those views. She's right. I don't think walking the beach with a metal detector has been more of a local thing. You certainly see it a lot in Florida, almost on every beach. But to her point, I mean, we were, quote unquote, once visited, very popular by
the pirates.
By the pirates, exactly, of the Caribbean. So who knows? Get yourself a metal detector.
Could be treasure. Something could be buried here.
Something could be.
I heard a lot of stories about that, right? Like there was a lot of stuff, and people came in the middle of the night and took it out. I heard all kinds of stories like that, but I don't know. I've never stumbled on anything.
No, I haven't as well. But then again, to the the listener's point, neither are we running around on the beach with a metal detector, so we don't know what's there.
We wouldn't know. Hey, but we had some real stories in Cayman. Now that I think about it, it's like, okay, Ellio, this is a secret. All right, go ahead, tell me. All right, well, apparently, if you get under a birch tree at exactly midnight on Good Friday with a white blanket, I'm serious. This is serious.
You know what a rule in calf now.
No, it's like if with a white blanket. Apparently something's supposed to appear at exactly midnight, fight you, and I don't know, if you survive 1 minute afterwards.
If you survive.
Then you're rich.
You're rich.
If
you survive.
Yeah, and then there I am at, 11:59.
So you actually tried this?
Yeah, I'm trying it.
Oh, wow.
But then, of course, I'm thinking, hold on a minute. How do I know I have the right midnight? It's like, I don't think this stuff is working for me.
Well, maybe you should chase the rainbow and see if you can find that, mythical pot of gold at the end of it as well.
My childhood was hilarious. I had so much fun.
Yeah, I'm sure it sounds like it. It sounds like it.
You never heard that?
No, I cannot say that I ever heard that story.
I wonder if someone else heard that story.
Well, if they did, this is the right place to come to. 745-2626.
We want to know.
we want to know.
Inquiring minds want to know. I mean, I'm serious. I heard stuff
Certainly,
like that.
we can't be the only ones.
Yeah,
that, you know.
But anyway,
that
I
shared these stories.
It was a different time.
I got a correction also during the break. The young candidate who, as I said, is involved in youth parliament. He is in fact the speaker of the youth parliament initiative put on by the parliament in conjunction with local high schools. Mr. Jaron Reynolds Velasquez, depending on how you pronounce it. Apparently, he's declaring for 2029, not 2025.
Right,
so I offer up my apologies. I saw his post on Facebook.
You're just pushing him to run sooner. Yeah.
I'm pushing him to run sooner, but certainly it read as if he was a 2025 candidate. I mean, he says, I'm a candidate for such and such a constituency.
If you say it now, you're probably going to be lumped in with the 2025.
Probably.
Fairness,
Well, we'll find out on March 3rd if he.
Sure, he appreciates the marketing.
$1,000. But apparently, he's still in SciFec, so he's not of the required age yet to run for public office. And according to those in the know who messaged us during the break, he is still in SciFec, and his plans are to run in 2029. But he has offered up some of his thoughts to the present 2025 candidates. It was an interesting post. And again, I think it is a useful post because it's coming from our young people, the next generation, so to speak.
So I wonder how old he is.
I don't know, but I'm going to guess 16, 17. But maybe we'll have an opportunity to maybe even read what he wrote on social media at some point. But last week Friday, I think it was, we touched on an issue that, frankly, irritated us. And of course, you're talking about the social media video gone viral of the road rage incident in which two persons, a 17-year-old young man and a 72-year-old not so young man, were engaged in an altercation. But what I think offended us and a large percentage of the Caymanian population is that the young man who was seen in the video as not being the aggressor was the one brought up on the more serious of charges, whilst the 72-year-old got what would be equivalent to a slap on the wrist, an offense that is not usually prosecuted and certainly doesn't carry with it any fines or anything else. And again, that infuriated us and infuriated. We weren't alone in that. And you called specifically, correctly so, for the Commissioner of Police to sort of respond and tell us, maybe there's more to this story that we're not seeing. There's got to be more going on.
Make a statement. Please inform us. Yeah.
Well, he has done so, again, going from the pages of the Caymanian Times. Yes, the Caymanian Times. A statement was issued by the Commissioner of Police, Mr. Kurt Walton, as it relates to the incident and the juvenile arrest. It's a little lengthy, but I'm going to share it with you now, and then we could, add it to the first of our otherwise, controversial, difficult discussions. The Royal Caymanian Police Service is aware of the strong public reaction following the assault incident that took place on Rex Crichton Boulevard on February 19th. We understand the concerns raised within the community and the ongoing discussions online. We want to reassure the public that this matter is under active investigation, and we are working diligently to ensure a thorough process. Our officers are gathering evidence and statements from all parties involved to ensure a comprehensive investigation. While we appreciate the public's concern, we urge everyone to allow the investigation to unfold without jumping to conclusions based on partial information. We recognize that emotions are high and that some members of the public have expressed concerns about the fairness and justice in this matter. However, we want to assure the community that the Royal Caymanian Police Service acts without bias and remains committed to upholding the rights of all individuals, victims, suspects, and witnesses alike. The arrest of the juvenile was made in accordance with the law and followed a careful assessment of the available evidence. Regardless of age, background, or public perception, our primary duty is to uphold justice, protect the rights of all involved, and ensure that due process is followed. The RCIPS does not take arrests lightly, especially when juveniles are involved. Every arrest is based on evidence and legal grounds. In this case, the officers acted within the law based on the information that was readily available to them at the time and followed the appropriate procedures. Footage of the incident has been widely shared online. However, for any video to be legally admissible, its origin and authenticity must be verified. We urge anyone with original footage to submit it directly to the RCIPS. We also encourage media houses who have shared video footage through their platforms to support law and order by encouraging the persons who have provided the footage to submit directly to the police through the proper channels. At this time, we ask for the public's cooperation to ensure the investigation proceeds without disruption. Anyone with relevant information regarding the incident is encouraged to come forward and assist in ensuring that justice is served. If you have witnessed the incident or have relevant video evidence, please submit it through the following channels: in person at Bordentown Police Station with attention to Inspector Kevin Bogle, who is in charge of the Eastern District's policing and is leading his investigation, overseen by Superintendent Richard Barrow. Alternatively, persons may call the Bordentown Police Station at 927-2220, online via the RCIPS website at rcips.ky/submit a tip. The message from the Commissioner of Police concludes in saying, the RCIPS remains committed to serving and protecting our community. We ask for the public's trust as we carry out our duty. We will provide updates as appropriate, and we urge the community to remain calm, avoid spreading unverified information, and work with the police to ensure a lawful resolution to this matter, end quote. So there you have it. Doesn't necessarily provide, I think, oodles of reassurance that perhaps there was a mistake, perhaps there was something more involved in here, but certainly from their standpoint, the arrest was lawful and justified. Your thoughts?
Well, first of all, one of the things that sticks out at me most with that is, yeah, we see the videos, but they haven't been verified. I'm not sure what that means. I mean, well, first of all, what was it that was done to verify that the young man had done X, Y, and Z and that he should have been arrested? Was there a video, or was that something that the officers themselves saw? I have no idea.
Well, I'm assuming if they made their judgment based not on the video, then it would have been through witness statement that
right.
who may have saw or otherwise.
But what I'm getting is, you show me a video, but it's unverified. Like, I don't know who this video came from. It's almost as if you're saying the authenticity of this.
Right.
Like, is it authentic?
It's in question. Yes.
Okay, and this is a video, but I don't take that. I need that verified. But Austin says, hey, I saw him do X, Y, and Z. Perfect, great, we arrest him.
But you accept that?
I don't get it.
Okay.
And that would concern me. And this is on a broader level, because what are you telling me? Are you telling me that if the Royal Caledonian Police just saw that somebody circulated, I don't know, someone being murdered? Huh? I saw it, but it's not verified. I don't know. That is very strange. Okay. That's a very strange statement to me. Maybe I need clarification. The last thing I want to do is say or do anything that puts us in a situation where we're putting undue doubt into the police or on the police. But anyway, I see a flashing light. So let's see if we can take the call.
We do have a caller on the line. Let's go to the phone lines. Good evening, caller. You're on the air.
Yes, good evening. I just want to say I agree with Ellio. I mean, I don't know if you guys have seen the video.
Yes,
but based on that video, I mean, I've seen it circling around, and to me, the older man was the aggressor. He's the one who got out of the car. He's the one who went over to the young man, opened the door, sat on him with his big fat self, and tried to choke him. Now, if somebody does that to you, what are you going to do? Sit there, or are you going to punch him back? Because I would have punched him right back. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And the community is very upset about this situation. I don't care what the police say. I think the police are wrong, and I just think that they're trying to cover it. And I don't care who knows who I am, because I'm sure both of you know who I am. Mm-hmm. And I think it's damn wrong that boy, if they're going to be based on the evidence, then they should have seen what that man did. So why did the young boy get arrested and he didn't?
Right. Mm-hmm. Yes.
Yeah.
Well, we certainly wouldn't disagree with you, caller.
Yeah.
It certainly, we share your viewpoint.
You know, it's very upsetting. You know, a young boy maybe just learning to drive, 17 years old, and him with this war car, what he has, that's what I call him, you know, was probably just worried about getting banged up, and I understand that because they cost a lot of money. But I just think the arrest was unfair. Yeah. And I don't think it's going to sit well with the community, no matter what the police officers say, no matter what Mr. Walton says. I'm not going to stand by and see this, and a lot of other people is not going to. It's wrong.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Indeed. Well, thank you, caller, for sharing, obviously, your thoughts on the subject matter. And as I said, we largely agree with you. And as we said on Friday, and I thank the caller for making the point, you know, someone opens your car door, obviously they're shouting at you before they open the car door. They open your car door and they begin to either physically or verbally assault you. I commend the young man because there were a number of ways in which he could have responded. The caller identified at least one of them, that how she would have responded.
Yeah.
You know, he didn't appear to strike anyone, but he certainly did subdue him into, i.e., submission.
Yeah.
And I consider that a restraint approach and response, but certainly justified in the sitting.
Yeah,
and
well,
to your point, the video, which we apparently saw more than one, but the one that was widely posted and went viral seemed authentic enough to suggest as to what occurred, verified or not. So
yeah, I mean,
I agree with your question.
From everything that we're hearing, like I said, the man would have come to this young man's door, opened it up as an aggressor.
Yes.
And I think all of us can say no one does that.
No.
I wouldn't even run up to my friend's car and just open it. I would probably knock on the window, right? Because surely you're going to startle the person.
Sure.
You know, and I'll just give a very simple example to prove something. Today I was pulling into the bank. There was a gentleman who was reversing out, and I was pulling into the parking bay next to him, absolutely doing nothing wrong, neither one of us.
Yeah.
But I could see he was startled.
Right.
Because obviously at the moment he started reversing, there was no car there.
Yeah.
So it was just a matter that he was startled, and you could see that, you know, he's frightened. And when people get in that frightened state, they want to react.
Sure they do.
And again, you raised an excellent point the last time as well. What if it was the young man that had went to the elderly man's car and jerked his car door open and tried to sit on him?
Right.
And I'm really not understanding, and I think I want to wait for the clarification, but I'm really not understanding what you're saying about the authenticity of these videos. Because if you're going to tell me now, what is our concern? Is AI generated or something? It's not real.
Right.
I mean, that really concerns me, that if someone could actually maybe even film someone being abducted, someone being murdered, I have no idea what the situation would be. And to think that the police might say, well, I don't know, I'm not sure we can act on this because we haven't been able to verify the authenticity of it. That is very, very concerning in my eyes. But, you know, I just want to say that I have lived here for definitely over 5 decades. And, you know, I want to stress the majority of foreigners that I have known have come here have been decent people. You know, you don't hear these sort of things every day. I want to put that little bit of a caveat on it. But it definitely seems of late that you have some persons that are just really getting a little bit out of hand. And I'm not sure what it is that got this gentleman riled up, but definitely he's made a mistake. And I think the police needs to make sure that justice is done on both sides, because the seeming inequity is not sitting well with the community. They need to fix it quick o'clock.
Yes. No, absolutely. And
nobody's pushing them around, but we're simply letting you know how we feel out here. It does not look good. It does not sit well. And, you know, with the greatest respect, I don't think that press release puts anything at ease.
Well, it's certainly very, very lengthy, very verbose. We could have said a lot of that in maybe a paragraph or two. But to your point, it does not, unfortunately, it does not settle the community because, again, in this instance, there is video to back up what is otherwise, you know, has been verbal or written accounts of what took place.
You see the guy opening the door,
he's
jumping and sitting on the guy. It's like, what is that?
And, you know, I also gave the analogy last week on Friday that I would dare say, take it a step further, that opening his car door was also wrongful trespass.
Yeah.
Because a vehicle is a private vehicle, and anyone other than the owner who attempts to make entry is doing so
Well,
without
you've talked about aggravated burglary, right? Which is where, again, somebody's, you not just burgling the place or burgling the premise, but you're going in, arguably with the intention to do something, to do harm.
Yeah. Yeah.
And again, I don't think he was opening the door with all the aggression to give the kid a gift.
No, not at all. Not at all. So how is this different than, had someone attempted to break into your home with the intent to do harm?
To do harm to you.
How do you arrest the homeowner, for example? You wouldn't.
Yeah.
So then why are we arresting?
Someone tried to break into your house to do harm, and how dare you put them in a stranglehold?
How dare you? How dare you? Be a victim. Be a good victim and lie down and play dead.
Right.
And then, count on us to go catch them.
That's about the gist of it, I think.
That is pretty much, the gist of it. So 745-2626, if you've got a comment on this issue, if you, like us, in the first instance, thank the Commissioner of Police for taking the time to put pen to paper, and certainly thank the various media houses who published his comment. I saw it first on social media, but obviously the Caymanian Times published it in its entirety without any bias or feedback or any of their own flowery language. They just published the
verbatim
what was sent to them, as we say. I sold it to you as cheaply as I bought it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's that's sufficient. But certainly, if there's anyone else who has a viewpoint on this subject, we would love to hear from you. 745-2626. Again, on WhatsApp, we can take WhatsApp voice notes or audio notes. We cannot, I'll say it again, we cannot accept WhatsApp audio calls for whatever reason. Somebody tried to explain the technology to me, but it makes no sense.
Yeah.
But we can't do it, or at least we haven't figured out how to do it yet on this state-of-the-art board. It's got nothing to do with the board, so it's got to be something else. But we can take your voice note. We can take your text message on WhatsApp. But if you want to call and share your thoughts and viewpoints on these subjects, matters, then by all means, 745-2626 is the number.
Yeah, and I want to say that we're going to try to see if we can be getting some guests in here to discuss with us some of these topics. My colleague was alluding to one earlier on. One, I want to try to see if we can get Mr. Eddie Thompson in here. We had him a couple of weeks or maybe a couple of months ago doing a video on the beaches talking about the vendors and the marijuana and basically what are we doing to our culture, what are we doing to our product Cayman, and where are we actually going with this. And we should be having him here in the studio tomorrow around 4:30, sometime between 4:30 and 5 o'clock. Want you to join us for that conversation. We'll be putting an ad out, hopefully, and propagating that out between now and tomorrow afternoon as well.
Mm-hmm.
But either way, know that he's going to be coming in here in the studio, and we really appreciate that and looking forward to a great discussion.
All right. We have a caller on the line again. Let's see if we can take this call before moving on. Good evening, caller. You're on the air.
Yes, it's me calling back. I just wanted to let you guys know I didn't hang up. The phone just got cut off.
Oh, okay.
No. It wasn't you hanging up. It was me. It was me thanking you for your comments. I thought you were finished.
Oh, okay. All right. I just wanted to make sure you didn't think I hung up on you. Thank you so much for listening. Bye-bye.
You are more than welcome. Thank you so much for calling back for that clarification. Yeah, no, absolutely. Just, again, when it relates to callers, sometimes it's a time issue, but for the most part, I listen carefully to what you're saying. Yeah. And if I figure you've made your point and you're pretty much winding up, then I'll just move on.
Right.
But certainly, no one hung up on you on purpose, so to speak. Well, we did, but it wasn't done in a rude way. Let's go to the phone lines. Good evening, caller. You're on the air.
Good evening, Austin and Ellio. Mario Ebanks here. Happy Monday to you guys.
Same to you,
Happy
sir.
Monday to you, Mr. Mario. Thank you for your call.
And your listeners. I just wanted to make a few comments, and probably I might say something that will incite a lot more calls in your show.
Well, that's
but
good.
I'm really enjoying I'm really enjoying your good conversation. Otherwise, two quick things.
Sure.
One is this issue of road rage, reckless driving, and crazy driving. I'm going to tell you this without too much fear of contradiction. You in the mornings, well, in the evenings too, but I see it particularly in the mornings where these drivers are going with these largely, they're mostly Honda Fits. And these guys are packed 2 or 3, 4 in a car, wearing these high-vis yellow or orange shirts and going in and out of traffic and stuff. And they're flying by like, I don't know what, if they're smoking something, drinking something, or they're late for work, or they just have no regard for life.
Right.
And I must tell you this, some of them are going very fast, but I get a good look at them, and the majority of them are Jamaicans.
Mm-hmm.
And they look like Jamaicans, and I've never seen them before. Some of them are working at construction sites, and I see them all pile up there. Those people have to realize when they come to the Cayman Islands, they cannot bring that crazy driving that they do back that I see in Jamaica, and that have caused so many road fatalities here to our islands and our roads. They have to stop it, and they have to be prosecuted. Now, mind, they're going to be prosecuted, but whoever is hiring these people got to give them some kind of orientation that if they can't drive, they can have their license pulled or not get a permission to drive and take the buses or walk or ride or whatever. Because I'm telling you, I'm so fed up with it, and it's going to cause more carnage on our roads.
Yeah.
And they can't say it's not. They can't say, well, oh, you're being anti-Jamaica. I'm not. I got plenty of Jamaican friends and good people. They're very, very good people.
Sure.
But you can't tell me
that
those guys that you see, the fact of the fact. You can't tell me those guys. I see driving those Honda Fits and those other Hurricane Ivan vehicles and other cars and fast cars with these high-vis shirts on are not Jamaican. They are. And they got to cut it out. Yeah. Cut it out. Sure. The next thing I want to say is I think that, and this is connected to this, that there needs to be a national culture and heritage awareness exercise for all foreign workers who come to Cayman for the first time. Because, when people are here for 8 years, they can apply for permanent residency, and which they, if they don't get that by the time they get into the 9th year, then, once they get an application in, they can, if they don't get through their PR, they have to leave the island. But a lot of people, when they get to that point of applying for PR, then they start to get more active in terms of getting involved in the community, learning about their heritage and history, and have to do a test as part of the PR.
Totally
but
agree.
I think from the very first time that they come here, the first couple of weeks or months, they should get a proper national culture and heritage orientation and awareness, so they know about us, we know about them, we can live in harmony, and they know what Cayman is all about. And when in Rome, as they say, do as Romans do, and they understand where we're coming from, and let's work together and live together.
That is an excellent point, caller. I just want to jump in to second you on that. And I think it should also be happening in our schools. Everybody coming here should be learning about our culture as well. And just like how we have persons come in where they have to take an English test, if they come from a country where English is not their first language, everyone should be getting some kind of a cultural assimilation test or something, whatever it is.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. They have it for the teachers, the school teachers. I know in the public schools have a national orientation program, and some organizations, some good employers, and I have been pushing it for years, proper orientation programs. But we need to have it in a national thing, a national basis, because that's only going to build a stronger community, a stronger country, and have this, get rid of this us versus them situation,
right,
and people coming in want to impose their culture and their beliefs and values on us. So, gentlemen, I'll leave you because I get some phone calls now telling me off about Jamaicans, but that's okay. I'm only saying, when you guys come here, behave yourself. We are not going to tolerate this foolishness anymore. Behave yourself. Drive like human beings and sensible people. Or people too, Don't get it wrong, but I see it more so with some of those guys coming in from the country.
Yes. Thank you very much, caller. Greatly appreciate it.
Thank you, Mario.
Thank
And again, the sign on the door says straight talk causes no falling out. And I think the caller is just being honest with what he sees and what he has experienced. And, we certainly thank him for his remarks. Certainly to pick up on what his first suggestion of that orientation, I think it is a very good idea. And again, if we can draw reference to to one of our good news topics, the museum is presenting, our cultural history, but is doing it in narrations and languages that may match the first language of those who make up some of the nationalities that live here. And whilst that may be done at a smaller scale, certainly I think to the caller's point, a half-hour orientation on welcome to the Cayman Islands. This is our people, if you wish. We can take aspects of the Constitution to make the point. Who we are, what we believe in, what we stand for, what we strive for. What the laws in the country are, et cetera, et cetera. We drive on the left for those folks coming from other parts of the world. Yeah, I think that certainly would have value.
I want to join chorus with the individual, because I know a lot of times when I talk about, for example, even the British government, I will have some of my little friends. I call them quote unquote my friends. Ellio, we're not carrying the country independent. I said I'm not saying to carry the country independent. It's like I keep saying, just because I'm saying it's raining doesn't mean I'm calling for a drought. Well, let me just expound again on this, because I have mentioned many times that if you look at anyone, and let's start with a business culture. Austin's working with a particular type of machine here in his studio. He's completely familiar with it. He knows where the knobs are. He knows the tweaks, the ins and outs. It is just natural that when you move to the next radio station, that would be your preference to work with. Am I right?
No, absolutely.
Okay, it doesn't mean that you hit black, hit white, and that is what you're used to working with.
Yes, because you're comfortable with it.
Great. So no one's gonna fault Austin if he wants to work with this particular box. If he's been working with it for the last 15 years, he knows it inside out. He'll transfer it arguably wherever he goes. I remember sitting with one of my helpers who was a Jamaican helper, and I love Jamaican. One Jamaican helper that I had was over 16 years. Okay. She pretty much helped raise my first two children,
sure,
and almost put a good dent in the third.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
A lot of lovely people. So let me put all that caveat up for those who might want to say something on to words. But let's be clear. I remember sitting with one. This was rather late. And out in front of my place was some Jamaican guys who felt like they wanted to open a garage right on the side of the road. Yeah. And so I said to her, let me ask you a question. What do you think about that? And then she looks out and she says, I don't really see anything wrong with it. I said, precisely. This is my point. There's nothing wrong with you. Arguably nothing wrong with them. But you're used to something totally different than what we're used to.
Right.
Like we think for some strange reason you should have a specific place called a garage, which is where you fix cars.
Right.
And all I'm saying is you could do this with the crime rate. I had another friend / helper, I guess you could probably call her. And I said, what do you think was the crime rate? And she was like, the crime rate's nothing.
Yeah.
And I said, you have to understand, I can't remember the exact numbers, but I said, do you realize that the total, I don't remember the numbers, so please forgive me, but it was something to the effect that the total deaths in the Cayman Islands for the last 4 years cannot equal the confirmed murders in Jamaica for 1 year.
Right.
And all I'm simply saying there is, well, she's desensitized to that.
Of course, absolutely.
So what you have to understand is if she heard that there was 16 murders in the last 3 months, it would not be moving her.
No.
Whereas the persons who are, let's put it, from here, we would be appalled. This is okay, and this is what you need. You need that level of how can I put it, gravitas. You need that level of shock to be able to say, no, this is not my country and something has to be done about it. Yeah. So you could see that even though this person means you no harm, they come from an environment where 16 murders in 3 months is like, we're doing good.
Yeah.
I think we're doing really well here.
Sure.
And they're not going to respond with that level of shock.
Right.
That is required to keep Cayman the way it is.
Yeah.
And so all of these things are some cultural sensitivities that we just have to accept. We need to discuss it. We need to get it on the table.
Yes.
All right? And I can say the same thing about the German. I have Jamaican workers. I talk with them all the time.
Sure.
I just drag and say, you guys see that? Yeah. And I say, okay, no comment. They know what I mean when I say no comment.
Right.
Okay? Because bottom line is that there's some things that happens, and let's reverse it. If you carried me right now to Jamaica, and I'm going to go build a house, sneaking suspicion tells me I'm going to build a house just like I'm building in Cayman. I'm going to want pavers out front, just like I did in Cayman. Right. I'm going to want the grass out front, just like I did in Cayman. I'm going to want my big trees in the yard, just like I did in Cayman. Whether it fits in or it doesn't fit in. I've seen Americans get off the ship, to use that expression, and the first thing they're looking is for Burger King. It's like you're in the Caribbean, for God's sakes.
Right.
Why would you want a Burger King?
Yeah.
And all we have to accept is that this is a natural thing. Doesn't make it right, but it is a natural thing. And to his point, when we can work to help sensitize you to the culture, I want you to understand that one murder in Cayman for the year is too much.
Sure it is.
Right?
Especially if it's a young life lost on the roadway.
And when we can perhaps get that on board and get that into our psyche, maybe it can help to make the country a better place, but we need to understand that cultural element, the psychology side of it, and try to hopefully get the proper response.
Absolutely. Well, we do have another voice note shared on WhatsApp. There are two of them, and WhatsApp generally plays them back to back. We're going to see if it does it on this computer. If not, I might have to. There might be a short pause in between messages. But let's take the first one.
Hi guys, Austin and Ellio. Congratulations on the new show. I'm not very good at voice notes, so I'll go very quickly to the point. Where did they get this authenticated video which they used to arrest the young man? Why is it that this authentication is required only on one side? That's point number one. But you see, this is the problem in Cayman. Way back, you remember the white police officer who assaulted another police officer. Did they dismiss him? No, they transferred him to the BRAC. Kenneth Bryan, a police officer one time said about him, well, he did this and that. When the video came out, the police officer was lying. Okay. I also had an incident one time where I had an accident at Triple C school. I had a problem even getting the police officers to come and deal with the matter. And even when the police officer came, when he found that the other people were white American, he didn't want to record the matter. You know, I had to plead with him, please record the matter. And we only agreed that he didn't have to record the matter if they signed an admission, and which they did. It is a problem which, as politicians, they have to deal with. You see, this is absolute nonsense. It is, I think, in the past, because politicians have not been strong enough about this matter. The community has been strong, but they need support. I thank you. Thanks very much.
Yes, thank you.
Austin and Ellio, just one more matter about that issue. You see, the problem now is that the young man has now a record of arrest. When he goes to seek a police report, if he wants to go to studies, he has to report that he has a record of arrest. They should not have arrested him. After all, he's a Caymanian. They could have just taken his address and investigated more. But now they've already given him what is clearly a record, and I think that is totally wrong. They need to check their policies as to who to arrest. You see, you can bloody somebody, but it doesn't mean that he was not the aggressor. A lot of times, the person who is bloodied is the person who was the aggressor. Right. They need to understand that. If they don't understand that, then they shouldn't be arresting people at all. They shouldn't be in the police force. Thank you.
Indeed.
Yeah, excellent
those
point.
are two messages. I think he's made a number of valuable points. Let's take them in order, if we will. His first message suggested that the police, like anyone, is not always above reproach, and he gave at least 3 examples where they weren't. Also, to his point on the video, and I think you touched on it after hearing me read the response from the Commissioner of Police. On what basis was the arrest made? Did they make the arrest based on the video that they saw, or did they make the arrest based on witness testimony that they were given verbally?
Or what they saw themselves.
Right, correctly. So, again, we take on board the point as to, what is an authenticated video.
Yeah, that is something that seriously needs to be defined.
Yes.
No, I'm serious. That is a very big one to me, because that almost makes it sound like, again, I'm going to go to the extreme to prove a point. It almost makes me sound like I could be witnessing a murder and record it. And police will tell me, yeah, I hear you, but, can't really act on that. Because that's a video and I cannot. I don't know. That's crazy. But he also mentioned about the individual getting an arrest record. And again, this is something that one of my brothers, is much more legally learned than me, Austin. It said to me as well, again, this is what's one of the things that's damaging so many of our young people is this arrest thing. Why did you have to arrest him? Where was he going somewhere? Is he going somewhere? I don't know. I don't think he's going anywhere. He's going home, You can do all your investigation and then come out later on and do your arrest of whatever's necessary. Yeah. But there's a quick reaction, and I'm going to bet, hazard, half day on Fridays, that chances are, to his point, they came out, foreigner, Caymanian, blood, no blood, and we jump to conclusions, we make some arrests. And either way, I'm just going to say, whatever it is, we need to fix that.
Quite right. And again, to the caller's point, there has not been a good track record of, let's face it, the police are human beings, just like everybody else. Mistakes will be made. But I cannot recall a single instance in which the police admitted to making a mistake, whether it is on an arrest or a decision taken, to the caller's point, when instances where very clear mistakes were made, but no apologies were given to the members of the public or even the persons perhaps who were victimized by their so-called justice. And it's a point worth mentioning. Again, the point that the caller makes in terms of the arrest, was it necessary? Clearly, from the statement issued by the Commissioner of Police, it's not cut and dry. If it was cut and dry, they would not be investigating still. So clearly, there is room to suggest that there's more to be investigated before formal charges are laid.
Right, but when did you realize there's not, although one could argue that it is pretty straightforward, cut and dry, but let's just pretend, let's take them at the veracity of their statement. It's not cut and dry. And when exactly did you realize that?
Yeah.
Before or after the arrest?
And of course, if it was after, then it would have been also after the public outcry as well. Before somebody cried foul.
That's when I think it stopped being cut and dry.
Yes, no, I think you're absolutely right. Either way, the police are not finding favor so far in our audiences, but I suspect that in all of the platforms in which this conversation is taking place, certainly over social media, where obviously, as we would one time call them bloggers, but they are responders to podcasts or otherwise, they are putting their fingers to the keyboard and they're sharing their dissatisfaction. And regrettably, the Commissioner of Police's statement has done very little to dissuade them that perhaps, there's more to this picture than we are being told. We certainly believe there is more to it, but very clearly the Caymanian has already suffered. And I just want to draw a reference to the point that the caller made that, arrest was not necessarily the first priority. And the record that he's now stuck with, at least for a period of time. There was a report, and I want to say it occurred when you and I were also on the air, but this is dated now. But there was a report, I think, published by the local media that suggested at the time as much as 2/3 of Caymanians had an arrest record in this country.
Really?
Yeah, it was stated somewhere. It was published. I want to say it was published in the Compass. Whether it was when it was the Caymanian Compass or the Cayman Compass, I don't know. But I will certainly Google it. It just popped into my mind, and if we have time today, I'll Google it and see if I can find the story. But I recall very distinctly that it was an article that I read. I didn't dream it and then play the number.
Yeah, and you see, the thing is, it gets really challenging because I even remember this is a vehicle incident, where the police officer simply draws a conclusion, says, you're guilty, and you have to pay this lady, which I did. I paid the lady. And then I end up going to court, and the court finds I was not guilty, But can I get my money back? Well, you have to now arguably take government to court to get your money back because some officer makes the wrong decision. In this particular case, I'm not 100% sure because this individual could go to court and be found not guilty.
Yeah.
In terms of this particular event. But what doesn't change is somebody asked a very general question on an application form. Have you ever been arrested? It doesn't say were you convicted of a criminal offense. It might ask the simple question, have you ever been arrested?
Right.
And in this case, he can't deny that he was arrested.
Indeed.
But it has implications for him, right?
Right.
And I say all that to say officers make mistakes. And the unfortunate thing is that those mistakes can be very, very costly for the persons on the other end.
Mm-hmm.
And there's sometimes even getting apology, all that is no remedio, as the Spaniards will say. That's not going to fix the problem. But unfortunately, in many instances, if not most, not even that's forthcoming.
Indeed.
Going straight to the phone lines.
We do have a call on the line. Let's go to the phone lines. Good evening, caller. You're on the air.
Good afternoon, Austin. How are y'all doing this afternoon?
Good.
Good, sir. And yourself? Thank you for your call.
Good. I just want to say, right, this whole issue that we're discussing, I guess, that's thrown into the pot about the kid getting arrested. It's not only about that, right? It's a bigger issue because Caymanians continue to get the rear end of the stick on basic issues here. Like, for instance, foreigner caught with a bullet, gets charged, leave, gets a fine and leave. Caymanian got to go to prison. Mm-hmm. Same thing when it comes to firearms, right? So it seems like for Caymanians' sake, it seems like it's two different laws for two different set of people, right? Mm-hmm. And I mean, don't take my word for it. You hear about it, you read the stories about it. And why are we doing this to our Caymanians when they're the ones that have to live here? If anyone's supposed to be getting the chance, it should be the Caymanian, right?
Yeah.
Okay, at the end of the day, because they're the ones that live here, they're the ones that have to go to prison, they're the ones that when they come back out may not do anything better with life because he's in prison, right? Okay, so those are the kind of things that we have to look at. I seem to think sometimes, I mean, the police do a good job most times. In instances like this, it was a sad situation of what happened. I mean, and I know the commissioner came out, I read the article saying that he says it's not cut and dry. But at the end of the day, say there was a road rage incident and both of them in the cars, does that give the guy a right to get out his car and enter an individual's car and try to do them something? Let's suppose the kid got frightened and slammed on the gas and drag him down the road and killed him. Okay? Then that kid have to live with possibly killing somebody, and then he got killed because he came out of his car and do road rage, right? So the kid is protecting himself in his property. And there was a case about property with Dr. Steve McFeel, I believe, right? Defining what property was, right? And in the law, if I remember correctly, he was saying that your wife is your property too, right? You remember that?
Oh, yes, the sacred vessel conversation. I remember.
You remember that?
Yes.
Okay. In the law, right? Yeah. And I'm not saying that to be downgrading or anything, right? I'm just pointing out that it said at the time, if I remember correctly, that you can defend your property.
Right.
Right? Okay. So if he's defending himself and his property in his property, so he's in his car. He didn't get out the car until the guy pulled him out of the car, basically, right? Or got inside the car, basically, at him. I mean, and then the police had just cut and dry, right? At the end of the day, the aggressor was the person that got out of the vehicle. The guy didn't have to get out of his vehicle if he had an issue with road rage or what you can call the police, right?
Right.
It was traffic, okay? He chose not to do that. He chose to get out of the car. And many other things, thank God, that could have happened that didn't happen, right? But the point is that it is ridiculous all the time that the Caymanians always get the back end of it. And I think this is bubbling over and bubbling over when we see things, and that's what happened with the protest down the road in Morpeth. It's bubbling over as Caymanians in their own country, island, whatever you want to call it. They get the rain and stick on every angle, with jobs, with houses, with buying property, right? All across the board. So it's, when I look at that issue, it's not just, oh, well, the kid got arrested. Well, this is a bigger issue.
Right.
Right? And I think if we look at it holistically, and all the politicians or want-to-be politicians need to look at this issue properly. And as I said on your show before, we've been talking about the same things for over 30 years or more. Same exact things, and it's not like we're trying to fix it and then continue to fix it. It's just like it's been left behind and Band-Aids and Band-Aids and Band-Aids. Right? And I know you talk about all the time, and I'll just say this, right? Of his motion that he carried to the House for the pension. That was for Caymanians, and you had a hard time doing it. So is it everything that we do for Caymanians you're going to have a hard time doing?
Absolutely.
I mean, you have the beach accesses for Caymanians that's been in there for donkey years right now, right? Not one group of politicians has made it that you have those accesses gazetted that here you go, these are accesses and it's going to stay that way. Not one, right? So those are the things that I think that are bubbling over. When you see these other things and it gets festering, it's been festering, it's just bubbling over at this point, right? And I think we need to look at it, and whoever running for politics, we need to look at it holistically and really and truly put the foot down. And this is our place. We can't go anywhere. Children can't go anywhere, right? And this is where they live, and nor should they have to go anywhere to find a job or to buy a house unless they want to, right? They should be able to do it right here where they grew up and at home. Thank you, gentlemen.
Yeah, thank you too very much for those comments and sharing those views with us.
The caller, I mean, is absolutely right. You know, and as he talked about a foreigner coming here, for example, with a bullet or something, what jumped to my mind at that point was, you remember some years ago, there was some kid or whatever that actually had some gun that was actually dug up. I think it was even rusty. Arguably, it couldn't even fire, but was facing the mandatory sentence. I think it was 10 years it was set for at the time. And I continue to see this. I mean, like he talked about even the pension amendment, and I've stated it publicly. It took me 2 years fighting within my own government to bring that pension amendment.
Right.
And I am 100% confident that it is because it was saying for Caymanians only.
Right.
I mean, at the time, again, not calling names because that's not what I'm about, but the leader of the opposition at the time came on your show, Austin, and debated me as to how terrible this was. Now, remember this now. I want you to say, yeah, because it was on your show. arguing that this is wrong. You can't take people's money out to allow them to buy a house.
Oh, yes, you're referring to the pension withdrawal.
The pension withdrawal
Yes,
amendment.
yes, yes.
But yet the same person, when they're in power, gives it to the public to buy lawnmowers, cars, go on vacations, whatever you want.
That was all right.
And again, and I'm going to say, you know why? Because foreigners were involved.
Right.
And people are going to want to bash me up. Oh, you're down them foreigners again. I'm just telling you.
Yeah.
And I remember Caymanian standing up against me, one particular lady standing up in the town hall, arguing with me about jobs for Caymanians only. The Compass wrote a big editorial, how it's wrong for jobs for Caymanians only.
Right.
You won't see no resistance? You make me get up and say all foreign journalists, for example, should be able to stay in the country indefinitely. Indefinitely, as long as their employer wants them. That freedom of speech should not be threatened. You're not gonna hear Quinn here, but that's what my friend was saying. Not one word gonna come out about that.
Yeah, sure.
The moment you're doing something for Caymanians, it's a problem. And this is why I said, in the UK, and when I say things like this, again, they're going to make the argument that I'm calling for independence. I'm not. I'm highlighting it. Somebody comes into our country and spends $10 to $12 million of our taxpaying money and have no need to show us what they did with it.
Right.
We saw people on the beach, on the ocean, they wasted it. Nobody makes an argument. And then we have the same governor's office right now, and I'm going to say it again before we go to break. Our governor's office, WISPA, a foreign organization, working through our governor's office to see if I can undermine the Turtle Center. I mean, we're not saying anything about that. But you want to see the difference?
Yeah.
You make either someone get up and waste $100,000 in public funds. Yeah.
yeah.
You can hear big. They have my throat.
Throat.
Anyway.
There will be a lynch mob issued for you right away.
Yeah, bottom line. That's the bottom line. So
no, you did. You make a solid point, and just to the caller's remarks, and again, these were statements that were made from Parliament, the floor of Parliament, the last time they met towards the end of January. I think it was the MP, Chris Saunders, who raised the issue to the caller's point that, you know, we have a two-tier justice system. A foreigner is found with a bullet in their bag. They're let off with a fine. It's ammunition. They're let off on a fine. We've got foreigners coming into this country with drug paraphernalia, marijuana utensils or otherwise. Oh, I didn't know I had it. I'm sorry. It was a mistake. Sorry. Slapped with a fine, sent on their merry way. But in those two similar instances, it happens to a Caymanian, automatic jail time.
You see, the only thing I want to say there, Austin,
automatic.
It's fine to say it, but what are you doing about it?
Yeah.
See, when I got in Parliament, I did something about it. I had the privilege of building my little apartment and said, hold on, what can I do to help the next Caymanian build it? Therefore, I came up with the pension amendment. I did the jobs for Caymanians only. Wasn't he Minister for Labour?
He was Minister of Labour. He was Minister of Finance. Okay. He was Deputy Premier.
Did we get a job for Caymanians only? Did they implement it?
No.
All right, so that's all I'm saying. And so, to that caller's point, we talk about this for the last 30 years. What are we doing about it? When you are in power, show me what you did about it. Show me what you're doing about it.
Yeah, indeed. Well, we do have to pause, take in a short commercial break, check in with the BBC News. But the phone lines are open. There'll be more Straight Talk still to come, so don't change that dial right here on Bobo FM.
If you care about your car's performance and fuel economy, you'll want to fill up with Pure 93 at Rubis. Pure 93 is the highest pure octane fuel in Cayman and will protect against engine knock, restore its power, keep your engine clean, and will even reduce maintenance expenses while meeting international performance requirements for your car. Come fuel the difference with Pure 93, exclusively available at Rubis service stations.
The BBC World Service, the world's radio station.
The BBC World Service makes programs with a uniquely global perspective.
Enlighten us. Where do we start?
The latest world news and current affairs.
The very best in global arts and culture.
What has been happening on the financial markets today.
Social issues, political stories.
Everything was there in a way that I never heard before.
The BBC World Service.
The home of the BBC World Service. This is Bobo FM.
Welcome to our newsroom here in central London. We place ourselves here, a little desk right in the thick of things.
OS from the BBC.
We can catch the very latest news from our colleagues, not just in this enormous room, but also from our colleagues around the world.
I'm in the room where they're treating children.
This is a combat zone.
The situation after the typhoon is very complicated.
It was a very tense situation. OS from the BBC.
The home of the BBC World Service. This is Bobo FM.
BBC News.
BBC News. World news from the BBC. Violent clashes.
Thick black smoke.
A tremendous legal victory.
Crucial elections.
Destructive wind.
A search and recovery operation.
A race against time.
An imminent threat. Flying a drone over a rival team's training session.
Whatever is happening, wherever it's happening, catch up with the latest news bulletins from the BBC.
The home of the BBC World Service. This is Bobo FM.
Hello, I'm Govinda Gill with the BBC News. President Trump has said the cost and burden of securing peace in Ukraine must be borne by the nations of Europe, following talks with his French counterpart Emmanuel Macron at the White House. President Macron said Europeans were committed to taking part in such security guarantees in Ukraine and more fairly sharing the burden for wider European security. Nomia Iqbal is in Washington.
Mr. Macron wants there to be security assurances for Ukraine. He wants there to be a negotiation whereby Ukraine is protected, Europe is protected, whereas Donald Trump, as we know, doesn't seem to want to criticise Putin. He's been sort of making Kremlin's talking points. He's sort of softened it a little bit in terms of his criticism about Mr. Zelensky, but he's not outright come out and said the sort of things that I imagine Mr. Macron wants him to say, particularly on reassuring Ukraine and Europe about what comes next.
Washington's changing stance on the war in Ukraine has been highlighted at the United Nations, where its UN envoy has repeatedly voted alongside Russia. Marking 3 years since the invasion, the Security Council adopted a resolution calling for an end to the conflict that contained no criticism of Moscow's aggression. France and Britain abstained after their attempts to amend the wording were vetoed. The Vatican's latest medical bulletin on Pope Francis says there's been a slight improvement in his critical condition during the day. The 88-year-old is spending an 11th night in hospital for double pneumonia. Sarah Rainsford is in Rome.
The Vatican stressing that he remains in a critical condition, but they are saying, and his doctors are saying, he's had no more of those crises with his breathing, no more respiratory attacks that he suffered on Saturday night, when I think everyone here was really quite alarmed. Now we know there has been some improvement there in his breathing. He's getting little less oxygen, needing less oxygen than he had been needing. Some of his tests are showing a slight improvement, his lab tests too. And the kidney, which had been a cause for concern just yesterday, doctors are now saying they're not too worried about that.
The United Nations Secretary General has voiced alarm at rising violence in the occupied West Bank after Israel announced it was expanding military operations there. Antonio Guterres was speaking at the United Nations Human Rights Council.
In the occupied Palestinian territory, violations of human rights have skyrocketed since the horrific Hamas attacks of October 7 and the intolerable levels of death and destruction in Gaza. And I'm gravely concerned by the rising violence in the occupied West Bank by Israel settlers and other violations, as well as calls for annexation.
Meanwhile, the International Committee of the Red Cross says it's deeply concerned the Israeli offensive has forced many Palestinians from their homes. World News from the BBC. Donald Trump has welcomed Apple's decision to invest $500 billion in the United States over the next 4 years. Mr. Trump has long pushed US companies to move manufacturing home and has raised tariffs on China, where many Apple products are made. A US federal judge has thrown out a request by the Associated Press news agency to restore its access to presidential events. The AP has been prevented from attending because it's refusing to call the Gulf of Mexico the Gulf of America, as is now US government policy. Clint Hill, the Secret Service agent who tried to save President John F. Kennedy during his assassination, has died at the age of 93. Mr. Hill leapt onto the back of the president's limousine after Mr. Kennedy was shot in Dallas, Texas in 1963, trying to shield him from further volleys. Fellow musicians have been leading tributes to Roberta Flack, one of soul and R&B's music's greatest artists, who's died at the age of 88. She was best known for a string of 1970s hits, including The First Time Ever I Saw Your Face. Mark Savage looks back at her life.
The first time ever I saw your face.
Roberta Flack redefined the sound of soul music in the 1970s. This was her first hit,
But she didn't get there until her 30s. It was the tender quality of her voice that eventually led to a recording contract. She inspired the next generation of young black singers, from Lauryn Hill to Alicia Keys. In 2020, she was given a Lifetime Achievement Award at the Grammys. By that stage, she was in a wheelchair, and 2 years later, she announced she had motor neurone disease that left her unable to sing.
That's the latest BBC News.
Welcome.
The views and opinions expressed on Straight Talk with Austin and Ellio do not necessarily reflect or represent the views of Stingray Media, its staff, or contributors. Callers to the program accept full responsibility for the views expressed. The show host and affiliates are not liable for any statements made or any harm claimed. All callers to the program indemnify Straight Talk from all claims. Offensive, defamatory, or unlawful content will not be tolerated. Be a part of the conversation by calling 745-2626. Now, here's Straight Talk with Austin and Ellio on Bobo FM.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Straight Talk with your two favorite hosts, Austin Harris and myself, Ellio Solomon. It is just about 6:06 here in the studio. How time flies, giving us about 24 minutes to go. And of course, you're welcome to give us a call if you'd like to join the conversation, 745-2626, 745-2626. But until then, it's just me and Austin.
That's right.
You know?
That's right.
But Austin, you know, one of the things I want to do as well as part of our guests, and we're trying to line these guests up because we want to make sure that we can have some good dynamic conversation with some of the topics that you are interested in.
Yeah.
And are some of them that you should be interested in.
Yeah.
One of those I touched on, Austin, was this whole issue about the beneficial ownership.
Yes.
Now, you see, what surprises me, now you remember, and don't say a word, Austin. If you say a word, I'm going to get upset.
I can say a word.
Okay,
I
quiet.
can say quiet as a church
Just
mouse.
quiet down. They had certain persons saying, you don't know, the referendum for that cruise tourism. I said, don't say a word, Austin.
Don't say a word.
Needs more time. But you know, there's never an argument, no matter how short it is, if it's a bill to do with finance, right?
Yeah.
Financial services. Oh, well, I'm sorry if the public doesn't get a chance to view this. Doesn't matter. But anyway, beneficial ownership. Again, I think it's a topic, and I want to see if we can try to get perhaps the gentleman from Cayman Finance, Mr. Steve McIntosh, in here.
Yeah.
He recently made a statement on the issue about permits. I think we should have an issue to discuss that permit because that wasn't clear to us.
Mm-hmm.
That was not clear.
Mm-hmm.
And in addition to that, understanding, again, this whole argument about the beneficial ownership and the impact of that, bearing in mind that secrecy, as far as I know, has always been something that has been very, very important to Cayman.
Yes.
And again, there's a good reason for that. And
Right.
there's arguably good reasons in certain circumstances that people should know who owns something, especially if there's some crime, whether it be terrorism or otherwise.
Yeah.
But my understanding of it is that amongst other things, it would be a case here that you've made it even easier, especially even, say, media companies now to be able to request and say, we'd like to know the beneficial, the UBO,
Yes.
the beneficial owner of this particular company, X, Y, and Z, and it's become easier.
Yeah.
And I think that pretty much comes live at the end of February or something to that effect. And we want to know, well, what are the implications of this? What's the impact that this is going to start to have on the Cayman Islands? Or is it not going to have an impact? I have no idea. But for whatever it's worth, I remember talking to someone, again, I won't identify titles because that's not what I'm about, right? Not today, anyway. I remember saying to someone after we had the 9/11, I said, well, do you think, and they were big into finance, let's put it up there, what do you think is going to happen now as a result of this 9/11? We're going to get new pieces of legislation and regulations? Oh, no, I don't expect anything like that. Going straight to the phone lines. Go ahead, caller.
Hello, caller. You're on the air.
Austin and Ellio, good afternoon, gentlemen.
Good afternoon to you, sir. Thank you for taking the time.
Love the excitement.
I am going to take it back to the first, I think it may have been one of the first episodes that you had on the air quite a few days ago.
Mm-hmm.
And the topic you were addressing was election, you know, whether the criteria for becoming a candidate was fit for purpose, as a term that Austin usually uses.
Mm-hmm.
And I got busy, so I didn't get a chance to listen further into the program,
right.
and I didn't get a chance to call.
Right.
However, since that time, I have been thinking about the topic,
Mhm.
and a number of thoughts came to mind, and I haven't done any research on some of what I'm going to say.
Mhm.
So the reason I'm putting it out there is to stir conversation and ultimately for me to learn something.
Right.
Outstanding.
So we have the issue of it's $1,000, and if you have someone to second you, whatever the case may be,
Right.
you can be nominated, right?
Yes.
Right.
And there are two trains of thought in my mind with that. With it being $1,000, the option is open to anyone to be a candidate.
Yes.
However, the flip side of that coin is that we all know that everyone can't be a good representative.
Mm-hmm.
So my argument then becomes, at least one of the arguments is, what is the figure? Or how is that figure determined? Because if I heard a couple of years ago that, for example, the referendum was the cost to make the referendum happen was somewhere in $1 million.
Like 1.2 or something.
Yeah, somewhere in that region. So if we're gonna, how do we decide that $1,000 is a fair amount for you to become a candidate?
Yeah.
Right? So that's one question. And if we're saying that $1,000 should cover the cost of the elections office, then clearly it doesn't.
No, I don't. You're asking us to comment on that now?
Well, I'm throwing it out there for commentary,
Sure.
Yeah.
as well as if you want to open up the conversation even more, that's fine with me. But that's one train of thought that I had, that the $1,000 clearly is not covering the cost of the elections office.
Right.
It's not covering the cost of all the parts of that makes an election happen.
Mm-hmm.
So how do we arrive at that $1,000? That's one. And then two, given the importance or the size of the Cayman economy, shouldn't there be more, and to use one of your terms on the day, shouldn't there be more skin in the game for someone who is saying, you know what, I'm putting myself forward to be one of those persons to lead or to carve the direction that the Cayman economy, the Cayman laws will follow. Yeah. And I could not align the $1,000 with all those other points.
Right. But just for clarity, one of the things I was saying, at least as far as I'm recalling the conversation, would have been that I think we need to do what we can to create a level playing field. And my concern that I was expressing is that what money plays in a typical campaign. So, for example, if you have big money, you can make sure you can market yourself under your party or your group on the radio, the TV, etc., where there may very well be a person out there that one would term as a genius, having the knowledge, maybe even have a significant amount of skills and certain characteristics that's ideal for a person who being in parliament, but he or she may not get elected simply because of the way the campaigns are run now. So at the time, I was basically suggesting that I would love to see things where you do what you can to pretty much take money completely out of the game and try to make it that it's determined more on public debates, such as what the Chamber of Commerce has. I gave an example about the nomination fee as one clear example of how you could see money could eliminate players. I said, for example, now the nomination fee is $1,000, which means it's not $100. It doesn't make it very easy, but it's easier than $10,000. But let's say you were going to make the nomination fee $30,000, where you could see a lot of people would not be able to run for office. So I went to that somewhat of a extreme on the nomination fee to show you how money can prevent good potential candidates from entering into the game. To answer the question that you're asking, no, I definitely agree with you. I don't think it's there to cover the cost there. And another reason that we can infer that is because we know that if you get a certain amount of points, percentage of the voters, you get your fee back. So I would like to believe that, or I do believe that money is something that is determined by a group of persons that would sit and say, we want to make sure that they're doing something and they're taking this serious. So if you made it $25, no one would perhaps take it serious. But if it's $1,000, you're taking it serious enough to say, I need to make sure that if I commit to get into this campaign, that I'm really going to engage in it, run, and try my best to get elected. But at the same time, not too high that prevents persons from entering into the race.
But as you were talking, a lot of what you're saying is opinion-based and not based on data or some set of criteria that can be measured.
While
I understand the point you're making,
Sure.
I understand the point you're making,
Yeah.
but it's left to too much. It's left too open to opinion and feelings to determine what the figure is.
To determine what figure is.
The nomination fee.
No, I'm sure however they reach it, I'm pretty sure it's something subjective. I don't think that there's anything specifically measurable about it. I don't see how anyone could infer that it would be measurable to say how they came up with $1,000 figure. To process what? We know it's not to process something, because if you were going to use it to process, then you shouldn't get it back. I mean, if it's $500 to process your license, I don't process your license and then give you $500 back. So we know it's not a process and figure. It has to be something that says, I want you to come, we want you to get involved with the race, and I want you to take it serious. And the nomination fee is just a level to say, this figure, I think, makes the person say it's serious. And I have to pay $1,000, and I really like to get that $1,000 back. But it's not too serious to say it makes it $30,000 that eliminates people from the race. So, of course, it's a subjective figure. I don't believe it's a measurable, tangible figure. I'd love to know what that is if it is. I don't think so.
Well, if I could just throw in my 2 cents. I mean, certainly I remember the conversation was all on, campaign election reform, and one of the things was campaign finance reform. But to your point, as how did we measure? How did we come up with $1,000? And again, to your point, caller, it's all very subjective. My opinion is just that. Ellio's opinion is his, and yours is yours. I tried to rationalize it in my mind as a candidate myself at the time. And, I thought it was $1,000 to defray the cost associated with the candidate's orientation. If you recall, when you first got elected, Ellio, the elections office, gave you a booklet. You had, the relevant laws. They showed you the election laws, the procedures. There were also at least one, possibly even two little sessions that consisted of candidates and their agents to educate and inform those candidates and agents of the necessary legal steps the law requires during the election campaign, what is treating, what is not, what is allowed, what isn't, leading up to elections. And those training sessions, for lack of a better word, carry a cost.
But I don't think it's for that, because if it's for that, then again, like I said, you shouldn't get your money back.
Yeah.
I totally agree with you, Ellio, with that, and I appreciate that explanation, Austin.
No problem.
However, I'd counter that and say, because I'm again trying to rationalize the $1,000 and say that in lieu of every person in school in the Cayman Islands learning how government works and whatever they call it, civil law and civil society, blah, 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 how that system works, I thought to myself, why doesn't, UCCI run a course, say, every year? So once a year, if you have any inkling or thought of becoming MP, you take this course, get some knowledge, and then at that point, you can make a relatively educated decision as to, am I really up for this?
Right.
And then I think that it shows who is really committed, and maybe even as a prerequisite to that nomination is to show what your grade was for this course. Right? It's again, I'm just throwing ideas out there to justify this $1,000, as well as to make the campaigning process for the nominees take it seriously, both intellectually and otherwise, and also help to prepare them for a more if you want to call it,
I think
insightful or educational debating presence.
I think the key is in what you're saying when you talk about taking it serious is because one of the ways we can reach the conclusion as to exactly what was intended, etc., is by process of elimination, right? So we know, for example, if there's absolutely zero nomination fee, I could think of a couple unsavory characters that go, I'm running, yeah, I am running for office tomorrow, and okay, we would have a number that would probably be 1,000 candidates running. I mean, it would probably be ridiculous. But the moment you start increasing that number, you start eliminating people based on somebody being able to say, and again, it's part of the nomination process too. You need at least 2 persons from your particular constituency, right? So there has to be 2 other persons that takes you serious as well and feel that you have a real chance. And then in addition to that, where you pay to play. You have to put that money up because either you have to find out of your own pocket or somebody else, again, has to put it up for you. And there's that risk that you will lose it if you are not able to get a certain percentage of votes. So clearly by a process of elimination, they're simply saying, I am doing something so that we don't have this just stock with people who woke up this morning with a bump on their head and decided that they wanted to run. We want people that are serious contenders and have a real chance to run. That's what we want. And I think we do that by the nomination process in terms of 2 nominators. And in addition to that, they comfortably got at that $1,000 figure. It would be like asking me, but Ellio, how did you get $35,000 as the withdrawal amount for the pension? There was some logic behind it.
Yeah.
Happy to explain it if you want, but I think that's what I would say about the $1,000 nomination fee.
Well, Carlo, we can pledge to you by seeking to solicit vis-a-vis the elections office if there is a legitimate, measurable reason why the amount was $1,000, or to what I think all of our points is that it's largely subjective.
Well, that would be very, very valuable to hear what that explanation is.
Sure thing.
And I'd be glad to hear you guys come up with that answer. Quickly now, on the second topic, which is elections related as well, is the issue of parties, party structure, and how, for lack of a better word, how real are the party structures that exist in Cayman? Is there any teeth to the party structures? Because historically we've seen people jump on the party bandwagon, jump off the party bandwagon, come on for convenience. And I'm looking at this thing and saying to myself, this makes no sense, short of just window dressing to either for a campaign trailer to say we got 19 candidates or to try and gain power. There doesn't seem to be any sort of real structure that keeps persons accountable.
Yeah, well, two responses. One, just very quickly on the nomination fee. I think a very good way to do that would probably be to actually go back and look at the Hansards and see what was being stated in the debate as to why they reached that. That might actually be there. So I'll undertake to try to do that as well. But on the party structure, I think you raise a very good point, because a legitimate party structure doesn't normally, as far as I know, facilitate the leader or anybody just being able to pick the candidates that they want to run with. There is a structure, there's runoff processes and stuff like that normally takes place. And I believe right now, not to try to give anyone a one-upmanship, but I think the progressives right now is only, to the best of my knowledge, probably the only legitimate party structure that I can think about.
Yes,
no, I stand to be corrected.
I'd agree with that.
I stand to be corrected because I look forward to the other parties coming forward. Let's show me your manifesto. Show me when this runoff of selection of candidates took place. Please feel free to show me.
Yeah.
But
I'll respond to that comment and say, just because you appear to be the biggest or you have been running the longest, that doesn't necessarily mean that your structure is intact, because we've seen
but I wouldn't
many businesses that have existed for a long time, but all of a sudden they just fall because the core elements that ensure that they're a strong business just don't exist.
No, and I can assure you that I wouldn't be basing it on the length of time served either.
No.
No, I'm basing it based on the knowledge that I have, at least of what used to take place. I don't know what's taking place now, and I can I can state that might not be taking place based on some things that I'm seeing, but I can definitely tell you that in the past, the Progressives was, as far as I was concerned, working very much in terms of having a manifesto, having the rules and regulations in terms of how candidates are being selected, run off within the party to determine who was going to get the seat long before the public even knew about those candidates. So from everything I knew, let's just say make it 10 years ago, 12 years ago, 100% as far as I was concerned that they were a legitimate party.
And we will add to that, they're the only group operating from a constitution. Every party that is develops their own internal constitution that outlines the rules, the requirements for membership, the requirements to select candidates, even the quote-unquote ethical standards. PPM are the only one with this documented, and as my colleague pointed out, from experience, they apply this method to each and every election that they're a part of. So to answer your question, the only properly organized party as we know it in terms of the party definition in the present circumstance is the PPM.
Now, if I could just give a little balance to that, I love balance, is to say that even though the other groupings or whatever might not have that specific structure, I don't necessarily think that it means that the candidates that are being put forward are not necessarily good and worthy candidates. I want to stress that. But
no sensible person would take that from the comment.
Yes, all right.
But one thing is for certain, and this is true across the sphere, whether you call yourself a group or a party, there is, and this is always a specific distinction and the true definition of a party. There are no parties or groups that share differing ideologies. Whether you're a group of Dan Scott or TCCP or PPM, there is no ideological difference between what they stand for versus what the other team stands for. One does not stand on the ground of, for example, I'm a socialist. I believe in socialist policies as opposed to capitalist policies. I think they're all capitalists, for example. So there is no specifically stated or even easily identifiable ideological difference between either the organized party, which we believe to be the PPM, or any of the other groupings.
I have a comment to say about that, but I'll let you say whatever you have to say, Colin, before we go.
I'm done. Because we got 50 seconds left, Colin, so I need you to wrap it up because we need to wrap it up as well.
I appreciate your time, gentlemen. If I get the time and remember to listen on another day, I'll certainly do so because I enjoy your commentary. You're a good team.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. And we thank you for your question. It's a sensible question, and
I love that.
Again, whatever we can do to find the answer, I will certainly solicit the elections office to address the $1,000 question, and the rest we can continue in the days ahead. 20 seconds, Ellio.
Keep engaging us. No, I would just say very simply that I think to the argument of parties and what's the ideologies, I think that one of the things we'll find, we can pick it up tomorrow, is that when you create the parties, slowly over time, they start creating them anyway. They start naturally dividing society based on little nuances, etc.
We got to go. Join us tomorrow on Bobo.
The BBC on Bobo. This is the BBC.